It goes without saying that sumo wrestling, although well respected and linked into Japanese culture, has an odd place in the fighting anime space. It is the only contact sport that focuses on pushing and overpowering your opponent without necessarily needing to do exactly that. You see, with most other fighting anime, you'll witness people getting beat up left and right, but with sumo, you don't just get beat up, okay? You get embarrassed, you get floored. What makes sumo the sport that absolutely embarrasses you is that there is no weight class. And so someone who is arguably weighing a lot less than you and smaller than you can floor you. As with sumo, there are multiple ways of winning and losing, but the most notable way of winning that we already know is pushing your opponent out of the ring. What we don't always know is that if any part of your body outside of your feet touches that ground, then you are cooked. But this does not mean that sumo has no weakness. In fact, it has a myriad of weaknesses, most notably that you're not allowed to kick or punch against your opponent, but you are allowed to use open palm thrusts and strikes. This makes fighting very difficult to happen for a sumo wrestler and someone who's like a boxer. As you can imagine, a sumo wrestler's body and their fighting style is slated for them to only take place within that ring, that 15 feet diameter ass ring. And so if you're going against someone who uses a wider ring, a wider area, if you don't adapt to this situation, 9 times out of 10, that sumo wrestler will lose to a boxer. He will lose to, well, maybe not, but maybe lose to a judo practitioner. That's just my assumption, of course. You know, me personally, I'm not a fighter, so don't ever quote me on this. But in my humblest opinion, there exists one fighter in Kengan Ashura who saw this weakness and said, nah, bro, not me. I ain't going out like that. That is Takeru Kiozan. Kiozan hails from a sumo wrestling lineage where all of his brothers are yokozunas, the highest ranking in sumo wrestling, where Takeru is only a sekeware, which is the third highest ranking in sumo. Although you can say that because Kiozan is younger, that he needs more experience, you can say that. But his brothers have already said, no, Kiozan's better than us, bro. This man is going to change sumo wrestling. Like, he's built different. He is better. He is him. What I've recently learned from researching sumo, and that makes it so cool, is that no matter your feats, no matter your titles, no matter your victories, nobody cares. You won't reach the top rank unless you have honor. We all know the meme, dishonor your house, dishonor your family, dishonor your cow. What Kiozan did is arguably sacrilege, because he dishonored modern sumo wrestling by practicing ancient style sumo wrestling. You see, before all the rules were in place for sumo wrestling, there was only really just one rule. You had two guys put inside of a 15-foot diameter ring and told them, fight. It was like Mortal Kombat at that point, where it was bloodbaths left and right everywhere. There were definitely going to be a lot of deaths in that situation. So over years, they made some rule changes, and then what we know now as sumo came to be. Kiozan saw modern sumo wrestling, and to him, he saw that this was absolutely pathetic. The old ways were better. And so I'm going to take the old ways and I'm going to bring it to the modern style sumo wrestling so you can see that my version, my sumo wrestling, me, I'm better. That was Kiozan's style of thinking. And to be fair, he did make it work. I mean, if you think about it, throughout his entire past, he's never really lost a match. And even after he lost his one match against Sekibayashi, he does not lose until going against Oma. Kiozan would go to different dojos or different schools of fighting and beat the ever-living crap out of them with sumo wrestling. To be fair, he did have a good track record, okay? This was the most justified arrogance I have seen to date in Kengan. And it's not like Kiozan actually hates sumo wrestling or that he hates modern sumo wrestling at all. In fact, he's a fanatic about it. If Sekibayashi is a fanatic about pro wrestling, then Kiozan is a fanatic about sumo wrestling. It's just that he's so young and so, like, you know, his mind isn't fully developed that he will fall down into believing that what he is doing is the right way because he's seeing results. He doesn't see the full picture of what he's actually doing. And so when they were writing Kiozan, Sanjo and the gang actually went out to go see different sumo matches. In fact, people believe that Kiozan was modeled after Endo Shota, who was the wrestler that Sanjo and his crew went to go see when they were trying to get that inspiration. But in reality, Kiozan is modeled after the ex-Ozeki Miyabiyama, who was the last monster of the 20th century. Speaking of, Kiozan does have a favorite sumo wrestler, and it's the ex-Yokozuna Takanohana, who was an absolute dog in the sumo space between 95 and 97. Like, this man Takanohana, during that time period, he won 11 out of 17 tournaments and a total of 228 wins out of 255 matches. That is an 89% chance of winning, bro. Now, if only I can get Air Groove to do that in my Horse Girl game, then I'd be very happy. Anyways, back to Kiozan. You see, when we're introduced to him in Ashura, he is pants down in the bathroom because he has just washed his hands clean after beating the ever living crap out of multiple people who were trying to take his spot. You see, this is an important detail in Ashura because you gotta factor in that Hiyami was the one who was sending these goons out to take the spots of fighters. And he did have the most people targeting Kiozan, and Kiozan came out of the game with the most bodies. So I'm just saying, the fact that he put more people, although albeit they may be no names, but he sent more people after Kiozan and didn't do that to any of the other fighters. He didn't do it to Ray, he didn't do it to Cosmo, he didn't do it to Waka. He said Kiozan is the one that's got to go. But when it comes down to it, Kiozan doesn't have what it takes to, actually have won the Ashura tournament, but he needed to be humbled. Both of Kiozan's brothers knew how strong Kiozan really was, and if he actually had honor and respect for the game, then he would be in the upper ranks. In fact, he would be the guiding light to change sumo wrestling. But his arrogance, that is the biggest flaw to his character. If Kiozan actually didn't have that arrogance, he could take sumo wrestling to leagues beyond what anyone could ever imagine. But he couldn't get over himself. He was too busy smelling his own farts. And there was no one better in this series to humble him than Junpei the Goat Sekibayashi. Both of them, two sides of the same coin. One has 99 on offense, one has 99 on defense. What happens in that scenario? And it's as simple as this. If at any point the strongest attacker is not able to defeat the strongest defender will always win. Tie that in with the fact that unlike Kiozan, Sekibayashi actually has love and conviction for the sport that he's representing. Kiozan, the moment he found out that his sumo was not going to work against Sekibayashi, he mentally crumbled, he physically crumbled, and Sekibayashi absolutely pummeled him. It's poetic in a sense, because had Kiozan actually have had the same conviction as Sekibayashi, he may have actually won. Nah, I'm just kidding with you. He wasn't going to win that match. I'm sorry. Seki to go all day, every day. But on the flip side, Kiozan actually losing to Sekibayashi was the best thing that ever happened to him. As we see later on in Omega, Kiozan has now achieved the rank of Ozeki, which is the second highest rank in sumo wrestling, just one rank below his brothers. This means that he is actually honed in on using modern sumo wrestling techniques. He's not using his ancient sumo wrestling anymore. In fact, he's actually participating in other sumo wrestling tournaments again, and he's being seen as an honorable contender, which is great for Kiozan, but not great for the story, as during the match versus Purgatory, Kiozan wasn't able to take place because he had to go through with a sumo wrestling tournament, which was also taking place at the same time, conveniently. Which, personally, if you ask me, I think it was just Sanjo not wanting to give, the Kengan Annihilation tournament an easy win, because there was no doubt in my mind that Kiozan would have gotten the most freest win off of anyone in Purgatory. But being written out of the story aside, this doesn't mean that Kiozan was not putting up numbers, okay? Kiozan was actually undefeated after that Sekibayashi match once again. You see, this man was on it was like a 6 or 7 win streak before the second match. Then he went on an 8 win streak before his match with Oma, including him ever beating the crap out of Kiba. Which is unfortunate because Kiba always gets the crap beat out of him. Anyways, the last time we get to see Kiozan fight is in his match against Oma, where although Kiozan does lose the match, he does get to show off his unmatched strength. And he goes out in the most manly way you can think of. Of course, he does the Whitebeard tactic of losing. You see, as I told you before in sumo wrestling, if any part of your body actually touches the ground, then you lose. Well, after Oma actually got off a Demon Bane against Kiozan, who was using his Raging Vigor, Kiozan passed out, but he passed out standing straight up. He refused to let any other part of his body besides his feet touch the ground. symbolizing that even if he lost the Kengan match, he was not going to lose in sumo. Overall, I will say that Kiozan is the definition of what it means to be an underrated character. All of his strengths that he can really take advantage of, he can't really take advantage of them until Omega, where he uses actual modern sumo wrestling techniques, and then he cultivates his own fighting style to allow him to end matches quickly. In fact, what he does against his match with Oma, he tries this like very effectively. He uses multiple thrusts and then disorients his opponent, then hitting them off with a coup de grace slam, or rather coup de grace stomp. No one is going to beat that, okay? I don't care who you are. Maybe Julius, maybe Waka, but not a lot of people in this series are going to survive an onslaught like that from Kiozan. It just goes to show that Oma was able to do it because, you know, main character, dodge, and everything like that. I don't like Oma. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to comment down below your thoughts, like, share, pass it on to your grandma, so on and so be it. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys for the next one. Peace.
Fight back, nigga! Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!